St. John's players in the pros. Find out where some of St. John's best will end up in the NBA in 2025. Well, St. John's fans were maybe a little bit surprised when R.J. Lewis's name did not go off the draft board throughout the two-day NBA draft last week. It was a surprise to many if you were to have told them during the Big East tournament how R.J. Lewis's play in the big dance and especially in the round of 32 would end up, or especially in the round of 32, how he would do and what would come from the criticism of his head coach, the criticism of many pundits, and definitely it did not end the way that St. John's fans would have liked, especially after having a player for the first time in quite a while win Big East Player of the Year, a player with the ability that Lewis has, for his St. John's career to end the way it did, and then for him to declare for the NBA draft while also entering his name into the transfer portal left a lot of people surprised. And that's kind of, I don't think, a statement that many people would disagree with me on, just because, I mean, I'm sure everyone thought throughout the season, hey, this guy will at worst be a round two pick. And if his shot can just get more and more fluid, maybe he could even be at the end of the first round. And especially if he had a strong showing in the NCAA tournament right after winning Big East Player of the Year. He doesn't get selected, and he signs a two-way deal with the Utah Jazz. Most likely, I would expect him to start off in the G League with the Salt Lake City Stars. There is a vacancy right now in their head coaching position. The Jazz, though, their head coach, Will Hardy, certainly someone that has had experience with taking kind of raw players like RJ and turning them into something. He was the assistant with the San Antonio Spurs. He had been with the Boston Celtics as well before being named the head coach of the Utah Jazz a couple years ago. So when you look at what he's done in his two previous spots as an assistant, maybe that can be something to help RJ as, he continues to evolve his game, definitely improve his shooting, which is going to be the common theme, unfortunately, of this episode. But whether or not, like, we won't know if whether or not RJ Lewis should have stayed another year in college for a little bit more time. I mean, clearly, with the NIL money he most likely could have gotten since he entered his name into the transfer portal, it most likely would have been from another school, not St. John's. You could have seen a guy continue to grow and improve this year in the college game, and maybe he would have been, at the very least, a round two selection. And ultimately, I personally thought that the majority of the year, that was, as I mentioned earlier, at the very least where he would get selected, which would have been on the second day. I personally thought, man, if a team like the Golden State Warriors, a Steve Kerr gets their hands on this guy, it would be amazing to see what can happen. The one thing with RJ, though, is he's kind of a tweener. He's not necessarily a shooting guard, and he's also not a forward. He's kind of too big to be a two and not big enough to be a wing. Now, that doesn't mean he can't find a home somewhere. He kind of reminds me, I would say, a little bit of like a Kelly Oubre Jr., someone that's not necessarily a wing or a two guard, but they can, get to the rim. And I think RJ, especially his defense this year, got so much better. If he can just continue to improve his game with the Utah Jazz, and whether that's in the G League or whether that is, hey, he makes the NBA big club to start the year. We'll see what happens. He's going to be joining, a situation in Utah where I would say it's not the most efficient situation. It's also not the greatest spot to be. There has been a lot of comers and goers out of that organization. They've just never been able to find the right footing. That certainly was on display with how the Donovan Mitchell era ended. And now you have Ace Bailey entering that team, and the drama that was around him. Now they definitely landed a potential, I personally believe, star in the making if he can be properly adjusted to the NBA game, and Walter Clayton. I mean, we saw Clayton the past 2 years at Florida show up big time on the biggest stage, and this past year in the finals in the NCAA tournament, he was struggling throughout, but then got on a roll, a run late, and you ended up seeing him, I don't want to say necessarily carry the Gators, but once he got going, you knew it was just more so a matter of time before, hey, this guy is going to show up. All right. So that's it for RJ. Kadary Richmond, he signs a two-way deal with the Washington Wizards. Head coach Brian Keefe, it's just a weird situation with the Wizards right now. Much like the Utah Jazz, they're way worse in terms of being dysfunctional than the Utah Jazz. The Wizards, I don't know if they really know even remotely where they're headed because of just how bad they have been the last couple of years. They've been drafting high. They just haven't really seen that team come together. They took Trey Johnson this year with the number 6 overall pick out of Texas. We'll see what happens with him. And for Kadary, much like RJ, I believe he will most likely end up in the G League to start the year. Now that's where I think as of right now he will be. But I believe potentially his ceiling could be higher than RJ's. I mean, the guy is a jump shot away from having been a lottery pick. I mean, and just a decent jump shot away from probably being a late first round, day 2 pick. I mean, the guy does everything right except shoot the ball. And that's not just, shooting from beyond. That's his mid range, that's his free throw shooting. His shot needs to improve. He is, as of right now, he's kind of on that Ben Simmons kind of career path if he doesn't change. And I hope that that's going to be the case for him. I hope he ends up, with the fluid jump shot, and he ends up being a player that can come off the bench or start for the Wizards and really contribute. I really think when it comes to a player like Kadary Richmond, it's so valuable to have a guy, obviously, that can do everything, but also a guy that, as we heard from Rick Pitino this year, he was, from everything he gave to the fans, all the information to the media and stuff, a real treat to coach, someone that, was able to take tough criticism. I think he said, he being Coach Pitino said he would get on him in practice, and all Kadary would do was give him a thumbs up. He, didn't really talk back at all. Kind of different from what we heard at Seton Hall with Shaheen Holloway. So I really don't know what was going on there, but from what we know from Coach Pitino, everything seemed to go well with Kadary Richmond. And for the fans too, I think everyone enjoyed his play. I think everyone enjoyed, well, I shouldn't even really say enjoyed seeing his personality, because we don't really know what Kadary's personality is. I don't remember ever seeing the guy smile. I never remember seeing the guy joke around a majority of the time. And if he did smile, I don't recall it. But it's just one of those things where he is such a good player, but yet at the same time, and it's not, and don't think of me as saying this in a bad way, he's one of the more boring players we've ever seen. come through St. John's and at the same time be so good. All right. Now for Aaron Scott and Deivon Smith. For Aaron Scott, he's going to sign a summer league deal with the Boston Celtics. This is going to be a potential opportunity for him to play for a job next year, hopefully show enough that he can be on the Boston Celtics G League team. He's most likely going to be a 3-and-D guy in the college game. I don't think anyone would really challenge me on that. He does a really tremendous job defensively, and if he can just be more consistent shooting, maybe one day he can find himself contributing with the Boston Celtics big team. Then there's Deivon Smith, and he as well signed a summer league deal with the Atlanta Hawks. It's a real shame Deivon Smith is not like 6'4", because he has all the tools to be a potential, point guard in this league, potential to be someone that can really help a team out coming off the bench, whatever have you. It's just a shame that, the guy just, his height is going to hurt him when it comes to going up against some of the, other colleges best in the summer league, and as well when, hopefully he makes it onto a G League roster. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up playing overseas. That's not a bad thing. He can, go chase a career in basketball overseas. And, sometimes that's just what happens with guys. But that's not to say that he wasn't a great player at St. John's. It's not an indictment of him. It's just, what it seems to be in the cards as of right now. So those are your 4 players. Let me know what you think will happen with these guys as they move on to their professional careers. Like and subscribe to the Big East Energy Network, and we'll talk to you next time, folks.